Good back there? Got on 424? Spirit? No. We thank you that from your you recognize our capacity. The moment of the plan for us, you've given other opportunity together as a to study your then as a result to develop life. For blessing. And of course, handle all those problems that you immediate future. Now, the God that holds for each of us, discipline, concentration, anything else we might proper study. We ask in His name. Chapter 5. Excuse me. We're almost out of chapter entire book, and happy. By the way, everybody, don't burn down and fire. Now that I heard yesterday, as back in our neighborhood here, I think here they have the fact that together, not we're at the same time, and that was called vision. The country is trying to by we have to realize the country was on principle and if you will, is associated with opportunity of Christ. First Peter 7 says, "Themselves under the authority hand of the God, in order that in the proper time, after having anxieties, you can't be exalted if you're still anxiety. You have that care of." Since the thing is that yeah. All right. So we're out of our that missed the first view of verses. We're going to go over this of point 8 because we are in now. Excuse me, not point. We've got it. See down. Okay. We're about ready now. Point 1 said that Peter's now going to give us information concerning our enemy and what we're to do to protect ourselves. So this verse will start the instructions, and verse 9 will finish it. So remember, this verse is not complete, a complete sentence. You notice that I didn't end it with a period. Point 2 said we start the aorist active infinitive, nepho, which means to be sober as opposed to being drunk. And I gave you several subpoints associated with the fact that what that means. And one is that, of course, the Bible never tells us that we shouldn't drink. It just tells us we shouldn't get drunk. Okay, and that's because it inhibits your ability to properly use your right lobe or your doctrinal norms and standards. And what this means is to have stability. Okay, the antithesis of being a pathological personality or versionism. Tense is aorist making this activity. Is that the fact that doctrine and logic lobe makes it command, and finally it says form the next, which was to slant first active. It is great to stay awake. Need more to be readiness or vigilant, or extended to mean to be alive or opposed to being dead. This command tells us that we're use our sober, we're well-balanced mind, full of doctrine. The second command that fully complements, this is the second command, fully complements the first command. The idea is to have a soul full of doctrine and constantly get it, review it, and put it in your vocabulary and categories, norms and standards, and then of course apply it. He ends this set of commands to tell us that this pair goes together. In other words, even though we have two imperatives, there are two sides of stop at getting doctrine, and you cannot try to fight cosmic system without first getting doctrine. They go hand in hand. Okay. Point 4 said, then Peter starts the sentence, which will explain why he gave us these commands, as well as to further give us a further attitude regarding cosmic. The sentence won't be until verse 34. Two phrases of the enemy is and what he constantly does regarding Christians. Your adversary, the slanderer, slant devil. And I gave you some information about that. Antidikos, meaning an opponent or adversary. This gives us information associated with the angelic conflict, the fact that the angelic conflict is similar to a court of law, so we're using legal terms. Okay, Satan is still fighting the end result, the fact that the fact that the being that is referenced here is always an accuser of us and always our opponent is best expressed in the single word adversary. And then the second phrase, the slanderer, slant devil, comes from the word diabolos. The word means your enemy through slander. So really we have your enemy, the enemy, but of course it's extended to mean your adversary, the slanderer. This tells us that Satan's primary weapon against us is slander. He's constantly trying to make sure that God is told that he can't put a person that's malfunctioning in heaven because he'd stink the place up, and of course God rejects that. Point E said that we know that this word has a very active connotation to it. It's actually composed of two Greek words. We have dia, meaning through, and balos, which means to cast a net, then came to mean simply to throw. Thus the word diabolos, which is what we have here, literally means to throw through or to completely penetrate, and carries with it the idea that the purpose is to catch, as in a net, to capture and destroy. And then we got into an evocative analogy. We had the word horonomai, meaning to roar. Okay, and so we have a continuously roaring lion. Peter uses the sound because of what the sound represented and what they knew in the ancient times. And I gave you some information about a lion, about the fact that the roaring of a lion actually has a physiological effect on its prey. It causes them to be paralyzed momentarily. That gives the lion, who is slower than the prey, the opportunity to catch up and, of course, eat it. Okay? You have the top speed of the lion at about 45, and gazelles, springboks, things like that go up 55, and even faster. And so the lion needs an edge, and what the lion's edge is his roaring. Okay, it was designed by God to actually paralyze, to have a paralyzing effect on the nervous system of the prey. Peter used this analogy as an analogy because it clearly represents what Satan in his cosmic system, including his minions, try to do to us. Satan, as a roaring lion, is constantly on the attack and he's constantly trying to frighten you and cause you to be off guard. Also, he's not a red-skinned, horned creature, as is portrayed. Instead, he's beautiful, and his voice is beautiful, enticing. And so the idea is you can get enticed into the cosmic system as well. You don't have to be scared into it. You can be enticed into it by the promises that Satan made that are anti-biblical, but tend to stimulate the old sin nature. Okay, the idea of what's happening in our country that started, way back when with the free sex idea. Right, and discounting the concept of marriage by offering, free sex and things like that. Now we're at the point now, my grandfather's probably rolling over in his grave, would never believe that we would have a country where we've legalized drugs, okay, almost entirely throughout the country. Okay, we've legalized drugs, we've legalized and worship, if you will, same-sex marriage, legalized and worship all kinds of things, teach anything in between there. Okay, and then nations as well. And of course, we see the attack on nations happening not only in our country; it's happening all over the world. As a priest nation or client nation, excuse me, it's horrible to see it happening in our nation. But it's happening in nations all over the world. Nations that had been client nations and had fallen, similar to Great Britain. Okay, it used to be Great Britain was one of the largest client nations in the world, right? That's why they were able to have as many missionary activities as they did. There used to be an ad for Schweppes soda water where they were talking about at one point in time, Great Britain owned, because Schweppes was a Great Britain brand, right? And they said Great Britain owned every desert in the world, right? You know? So they knew about water. Well, the truth was that they were allowed to have the activity, colonization activity that they had by God because they were spreading the truth of the Word of God. Explorers would, and then you would have the or the that would come in after the gospel to the nation. Now, very hard, properly functioning church in Britain. Okay, if you watch, there's a show called Move to the Country, or something like that. That's on Channel 8. Or no, it's on a different channel, but it doesn't matter. But anyway, and they always talk about, oh, this town has this church in the town, but nobody goes there. You know, just look at the big, you know, he planned as well. Point B. The primary attack, comma, as given in our verse, comma, is to accuse or malign the believer in heaven, period. The idea is that Satan has access to the third heaven. He has access to the throne room of God. Okay? Continue the point. He spends time in heaven, as we know, colon, 1 through 11. Beginning of the book, Satan and God. God saying, my believer down there is saying, yeah, all this blessing, he's going to take it all away between, if you will, between God and Satan. Okay, so we have Job 1, 6 through 11, and Zechariah 3, 1 and 2. While there, he is constantly accusing us as our adversary. Revelation 12, 9 and 10. He seeks to fight and the absolution malfunction of course it will the Lord, advocate, cross takes sins. Read is brought in as a part of this. Verse 2. In other words, as Jack's telling bring that